This is Sue Ross, and we're talking with Mable Haddock, the Executive Director of the National Black Programming Consortium. We'd like to welcome you to Atlanta.
Thank you very much.
Mable is here in connection with the 6th Annual Atlanta Third World Film Festival, and we have just had the Atlanta premiere of a new film produced by the National Black Programming Consortium, Mandela. Would you like to tell us something about the film and how you all got into this project?
Well, we started the project 3 years ago, and as you know, 3 years ago was way before major media decided that it was an issue that they wanted to highlight on 6 o'clock evening news. We started it because we felt that it was very important that people knew about Nelson Mandela, who had been in prison for 24 years, and that most Americans did not even know who he was, or they didn't know what apartheid was. And we wanted to bring to world attention those two issues, the fact that Nelson was in jail for his political beliefs, and that the apartheid system was designed to destroy any kind of semblance of family life in South Africa. We thought those were issues that would get the American public at least stirred up and concerned about what was happening in South Africa, and as a result put some pressure on the government to do something about it. As you know, the situation in South Africa did explode about a year and a half ago. We were still working on the film at this time, and we're still looking at doing a half-an-hour documentary on Nelson Mandela. But we then realized that world attention had been focused on the subject. However, the 2 minute clips that we saw on the news, on 6 o'clock news, were still not enough, because what you saw was burning of buildings and people in the streets, and certainly that's going on in South Africa. But we also wanted people to understand something about the personal dimensions of the Mandela. What is it about these two people who've inspired millions of people? What is it about these two people who've spent 5 months together as husband and wife, who are still loyal to each other, who still raise a family, who still work in the community, at least when he does, and still support each other in the way that they do? We felt that that kind of story would be an inspiration to people, that it would move people, and that people could relate to that on a personal level.
How did you start, I guess, how did you go about starting to do the film? You said you did research first, and then were you able to go into South Africa right away, or did you have to wait for funding? Or?
The first thing we had to do, of course, was try to put the funding together, and we used a variety of funding sources. We went door to door almost, and that's very unusual, as you know, to fund a film. But we purchased a mailing list of some liberal organizations, and we sent out solicitation letters asking them to support this film, and we got a tremendous response from the people. We raised about $9,000 that way, which allowed us to do the research, you know, look up the archival materials, take trips and talk to people and research the whole issue, and also to write other proposals and get those mailed out and solicit other kinds of funds. We eventually were able to get funding from MacArthur Foundation, who gave us one of our first grants, and then the United Nations Department of Radio and Television, who gave us our second grant, and those two grants totaled $40,000, which enabled us to then hire a crew and go into South Africa. In the meantime, we were still busy trying to raise other funding, because we, you know, had to take trips to London. We interviewed Mrs. Tambo, the wife of the ANC leader, who is now in exile, and we introduced a number of we interviewed a number of other people in London. So we had to do a great deal of traveling. We had to pay our crew in London and in South Africa, as well as people here in the United States. And so we just continued to raise funds and to write proposals, and we got a variety of funding, but we were able to raise the necessary funds to complete the film.
Now, from what I understand, we've kind of been treated to a sneak preview of the film. The film is going to be shown to the nation soon?
The film will air on public television on June 25th at 9 p.m.
Well, I'm sure everybody in Atlanta will have their TV sets tuned to either Channel 8 or Channel 30. And
well, we would certainly hope so. What we're trying to do now is raise monies so that when the film does air, that it won't get lost in the schedule, as one-time shot deals do have a tendency to do. We want to be able to raise enough money so that we can advertise in TV Guide and other selected publications, so that millions of people will see this film, rather than I happened to turn my channel and I saw these faces and I stopped to look at it. We want people to be prepared to look at this, and the way that you do this is to advertise and promote.
Okay. The film very powerfully focuses on the lives of the Mandelas, and illuminates the South African struggle through looking at a very personal view of the life of one family. How did you choose to focus the film in this way, rather than on the general struggle as it's going on in South Africa?
Because I think, as I said, that these two people are symbols. They are symbols of, as Nelson is a symbol of the oppression that the South African government imposes on blacks, having been in prison for 20-some-odd years. His self-sacrifice, I think, is a symbol of what we all want to be as human beings. And I think the call for his release is a symbol for the freedom that black South Africans aspire to. So in that sense, these two people were symbols for what is happening to black South Africans all over South Africa, and we were able to present that story in a way I thought that lent itself very well to film. But that particular situation is happening to many more people, as you know, than Nelson and Winnie Mandela.
Have you had any reactions so far from the black South African community? Have you been able to show it to black South Africans?
Yes, we've shown it to some ANC people and other black South Africans, as well as Nadine Gordimer, and the reaction has been extremely positive. Some of especially the black South Africans, were very surprised at the turn that it took, and they said, we thought what you would have was a film that showed burning buildings and people throwing rocks throughout the entire film, and that's kind of what I guess we wanted to see, but in a sense we didn't, and we're very, very surprised and touched by the human element that this introduces, because we do want people to understand that we're human beings with the same aspirations, hopes, and dreams that anyone else has, and by virtue of being this color, these things are denied to us, and I think this film illuminates that very, very well. As a matter of fact, I've had people come up to me and say, Americans, this is not South Africans, but Americans say to me, I complain because my husband is away on a business trip, or I complain because my husband you know, is a politician and he's away from home, and this makes me appreciate more and more my husband and my family, because this woman has been struggling and has been loyal to her husband. They've been loyal to each other and supportive of each other, and they've spent 5 months together.
Do you think this film will ever be shown in South Africa?
Not publicly, no, but in other ways, yes. I mean, the underground works.
Well, tell us something about the National Black Programming Consortium. How long have you all been in operation, and what exactly do you do?
Well, we've been in operation for 5 years, and the purpose of the organization is to present to the public films and television programs, videos, which present a positive image of blacks, an image from our own perspective. Hopefully helps to balance the stereotypes that are out there about blacks, and comes from a historically accurate perspective. So the Mandela story was just a natural evolution of what we are and what we try to do.
Do you promote works by a lot of independent black filmmakers? Or?
We have in our catalog works by independent black filmmakers, and we try to get those aired to a large general population. I think it's very nice when blacks show films to each other, but I think that people make films because they want them to get out to a very large and general audience. We make films because we want to change people's minds, and in order to do that, we have to reach the largest audience possible. And so we try to make that happen for black filmmakers. We're not always as successful as we'd like to be, but we do make some inroads here and there.
So your primary market is to public television stations? Or?
Our primary market has been to public television stations and international markets, simply because those two markets have been much more receptive to the kinds of programs that we promote. I mean, if we had, I think, commercially viable programs, then we would look at different markets for promoting them, but that's not our interest. That's not part of our mandate. We want to promote films which do educate and entertain and inform.